What if the people who claim to protect community standards were really just protecting their own fragile egos? What if one quiet act of cruelty against a working man turned into the kind of public humiliation the whole city would never forget? And what if a single basketball hoop, removed in secret out of spite, came back bigger, louder, brighter, and backed by the NBA itself? Welcome to Honorbound Tales, where we expose the petty tyrants hiding behind clipboards and bylaws. Before we dive in, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and drop your location in the comments. We love seeing how far these stories travel, especially when they shake the foundations of power. This is the story of Jamal Reeves, a man who never asked for trouble, but who refused to bow when it found him. Jamal worked long shifts as an EMT, 12-hour days, sometimes 16. He didn't complain. Saving people was in his bones. But his real passion wasn't actually medicine. It was the youth basketball club he ran on weekends. He'd grown up in a neighborhood where nobody invested in kids. He wasn't about to let that happen to the next generation. So outside his modest home in the Willow Terrace subdivision stood a simple, sturdy basketball hoop. Not fancy, not loud, not obstructing anything. It was where the neighborhood kids played after school, where Jamal taught them discipline, respect, drills, teamwork, and, when necessary, how to deal with disappointment without losing themselves. Parents loved it, kids adored it. But the HOA board? Oh, they despised it. Not because it was dangerous, not because it was unstable, not because it violated any real safety code. No, the issue was that it attracted the wrong kind of energy. A phrase with a long, ugly history. A phrase Jamal had learned to hear with a translator in his mind. A phrase that meant, "We don't like seeing black kids in our cul-de-sac." The HOA president, Geraldine Whitfield, insisted it violated Section 14.9b of the Landscaping Ordinance, even though that ordinance referred to pergolas, trellises, and garden fountains, not basketball hoops. When Jamal politely pointed that out, she smiled the kind of brittle smile that never reaches the eyes, and said, "Well, we'll review it." Review it meant wait until he's at work. Because one Thursday morning, while Jamal was stabilizing a man who collapsed at the grocery store, the HOA sent a tow crew, not for a car, but for a basketball hoop. They cut the bolts, they loaded it into a truck, they left a notice taped crookedly across his front door. Unauthorized recreational structure, removed for community compliance. Fine $100 per day until permanently resolved. Jamal stood there in his EMT uniform, sweat-drenched, exhausted, speechless, staring at the empty spot where his hoop had stood. It wasn't just a piece of metal and fiberglass. It was a sanctuary, a refuge for kids who didn't have many, a symbol. And the board had taken it as casually as trash day. He didn't yell, he didn't slam doors. That wasn't who he was. But the neighborhood kids saw the look in his eyes, the tight jaw, the controlled breathing, the way he placed his hand against the pole's imprint in the concrete, like he was touching a gravestone. Parents were furious. Residents argued in group chats. Geraldine sent out a defensive email about maintaining the visual aesthetic of the community, followed by another saying, "Our streets are not a public park." But Jamal? He got quiet. He made one phone call, a phone call that would change everything. You see, Jamal didn't brag, he didn't make noise, but one of the kids he coached occasionally was the son of a community relations director for the local NBA team, the Carolina Stormhawks. And Jamal had spent years building his youth basketball program into something real, something organized, something consistent. And the Stormhawks loved community heroes. So when Jamal told them what happened, how the HOA treated his youth program like garbage while fining him $100 a day, they didn't just offer sympathy, they offered a sponsorship. 2 weeks later, while Geraldine strutted around planning her next crackdown on mailbox paint colors, a convoy of black SUVs and 2 large branded trucks rolled into the neighborhood. Residents came out of their houses, phones came out, kids screamed, cars stopped in the street. On the side of the trucks, Carolina Stormhawks Youth Initiative. And walking beside them, the team's starting point guard, a local news crew, and the Stormhawks PR director. They walked directly to Jamal's house. Geraldine hurried down the street, waving her clipboard like a weapon. "This is a private community. You can't just bring media and trucks and sports people here." The point guard looked at her like she was a confused pigeon. The PR director smiled brightly. "We're here to install an official NBA-regulated outdoor community hoop as part of our youth empowerment project, fully sanctioned, fully insured, fully permitted by the city under the Community Youth Facility Protection Act." Community what? The PR director lifted her phone. "I emailed you the paperwork last week, and the city approved it yesterday. Didn't you check your inbox?" She hadn't. She was too busy writing citations about improperly coiled garden hoses. Residents gathered as the crew poured fresh concrete, measured the regulation lines, and anchored a gleaming professional-grade basketball system into place. The backboard shimmered. The rim was NBA certified. Even the padding had the Stormhawks logo. Kids cried, parents applauded. Jamal stood there, stunned, humbled, quietly wiping his eyes. And then came the cherry on top. The PR director made an announcement into a cluster of microphones. "We are proud to partner with Jamal Reeves to designate this hoop as an official community youth training site. Any attempt to remove, alter, obstruct, or otherwise interfere with this facility constitutes a violation of city code and carries immediate penalties, including towing of any vehicle blocking youth access." Residents cheered. Geraldine's face turned the color of spoiled mayonnaise. The board tried to retaliate with parking restrictions. They tried noise complaints. They tried claiming it was public infrastructure placed on private property. Every attempt got crushed by the Stormhawks legal team. It wasn't just a hoop anymore. It was protected, sanctioned, untouchable. And then came the gala night. The Stormhawks held a charity event in downtown Raleigh to celebrate the launch of their youth program. Jamal was an honored guest. He wore a navy suit. The kids wore matching team shirts. Cameras flashed, donors applauded, and Geraldine and the board? Well, they were invited too. By accident. They received the public event announcement and assumed it was some exclusive neighborhood-related function. So they arrived in a little caravan of SUVs and sedans, dressed like they were attending a state dinner. They parked right outside the venue, in the loading zone, in the fire lane, and most importantly, blocking the space designated for the Stormhawks Youth Facility display. The city towing department didn't even hesitate. One by one, the board's vehicles were lifted, tilted, and hauled away while they were inside sipping cheap Chardonnay, oblivious. When they came back out, all that remained were signs reading, "Do not block community youth facilities, City Code 8214. Residents filmed them screaming. Kids laughed. The videos went viral. Jamal didn't celebrate their humiliation. He didn't gloat. He simply thanked the Stormhawks, thanked the city, thanked the community, and walked home knowing the kids finally had something that couldn't be stolen or treated like it didn't exist. And ever since that day, whenever Geraldine or anyone on the board walks past that shining basketball hoop, now engraved with a plaque honoring Jamal's youth leadership, they look away, because the hoop stands taller than their authority, brighter than their rules, louder than their pettiness. It stands as proof that sometimes the smallest act of destruction brings about the biggest act of justice. This has been Honorbound Tales. If this story made your blood pressure rise or made you smile, hit like, subscribe, and drop your location in the comments. We love seeing how far these stories travel, especially when they shake the foundations of power. And remember, no matter how small the battle may seem, honor always finds a way.